All right, gun voters in St. Charles County. Tony Lovasco versus Deanna Self. Who's going to fight for your gun rights in the Missouri House? Stay tuned, guys. We're breaking this race down for you right now. Hey guys, Aaron Dorr here with the Missouri Firearms Coalition. The August primary is almost here, and in St. Charles County, we're being asked by a lot of gun owners about this matchup between incumbent state rep Tony Lovasco and his challenger, Deanna Self. It's the northern portion here of St. Charles County, and it's kind of a rematch of the primary we saw just 2 years ago when Deanna challenged Tony Lovasco that time. And the question you're asking us is the same question that we kind of discuss every 2 years here at election time. It's not who's pro-gun, because everyone's pro-gun. Notice the sarcasm. In Missouri, in a Republican Party primary, heck, half the Democrats claim to be pro-gun here in Missouri at election time. So the question you're asking us is more, how do we know who we can count on? Who can we trust? How do we know that when a candidate tells us they're pro-gun in July, a month before the election, they're actually going to fight for the Second Amendment if I send them to Jefferson City? It's an important question to consider because, let's be honest, we have a growing number of Republicans across the state right now, these rhino Republicans who campaign on our gun rights and then vote against the Second Amendment once they're safely in Jeff City for 2 or 4 years. So what we've done here at the Missouri Firearms Coalition is kind of collate all the information we have on these candidates, from their candidate surveys, their votes in the case of Mr. Lovasco, public statements, all that we can find to give you guys a snapshot on how these two candidates might vote if you send them to Jefferson City. We're going to begin with Representative Lovasco. Tony's been in office now, I believe, for 6 years. If you know him, you know he's a very strong ally for gun owners. It was no surprise to us when he surveyed 100% pro-gun with the Missouri Firearms Coalition. And what it means to us to be 100% pro-gun is not just, yes, I'll vote pro-gun. That's easy. We want fighters. We want champions. We want leaders who will sponsor pro-gun bills and force the issue in Jefferson City. And that's what Tony has pledged to do in his candidate survey. You can see his survey and all of our surveys right now on our website. But more than that, when it comes to Tony, I mean, a survey is important. We like to see a survey to give us a baseline. But in the case of Lovasco, his record in Jeff City speaks far louder than a candidate survey ever could. And the record here is very good. Just this last session, he was a leading co-sponsor on HB 712. This was our bill to ban red flag gun seizures here in Missouri forever. We all know what a red flag law is by now, probably. Your bitter ex-spouse, your bitter coworker, your bitter liberal neighbor who's a college professor doesn't like you. They call you in. You might be dangerous. The cops go to the judge gives a seizure order, and your guns are gone. No arrest, no charges, no conviction, nothing, just your guns are gone. Other red states have gone beyond simply defeating this legislation, and they have now banned red flag laws altogether. That is our goal here in Missouri. Lovasco agrees. He was a leading co-sponsor on House Bill 712. Very happy to announce that as well. But more than that, in 2021, when we passed the Second Amendment Preservation Act, we call it SAPA for short, it was a landmark bill, not just here in Missouri, but nationally, because what it did is it told Joe Biden, you cannot use our cops, our city cops, our troopers, our deputies to enforce federal gun control laws. It asserted state sovereignty and said if you want to bring in federal authorities to enforce your tyranny, that's your prerogative, but you're not going to use our law enforcement officers and our resources to enforce tyrannical gun control. It was a monumental achievement for gun owners, again, here in Missouri, but also nationally. It's being copied now in red states all across the country, and Lovasco helped lead the fight for that in the House in 2021. Very pleased to announce that as well. Same thing, though, for enhanced stand your ground law. We've got stand your ground law here in Missouri. Everyone knows that by now, probably. But we have a very deficient version. Right now in Missouri, the law says that you are presumed guilty if you draw or use your firearm in a self-defense situation. And what that means is all of the power is in the hands of the government as they try to prosecute you for your alleged crime. In most other states, or at least 20 states now, you're actually presumed innocent if you use your firearm, and the government has the responsibility of proving your guilt in a court of law. That's how it should be. This is America. We're supposed to be presumed innocent, right, until proven guilty, but it's not that way here in Missouri when it comes to self-defense situations. In committee, when I was testifying this bill 2 years ago, the Democrats were losing their mind, painting all kinds of crazy scenarios and what ifs. And it was Lovasco in committee who stood up and went head to head with the Democrats and showed them how stupid they were, showed them the basic fairness and common sense of this legislation. That's a big mark for Tony, fighting for us in committee. And earlier last session as well, Tony Lovasco helped fight to get rid of deadly gun-free zones. Missouri's got a real problem with deadly gun-free zones. It's not federal statute, it's state statute that makes it a crime for us to carry in 18 different areas across the state. We all know that these are deadly areas, that criminals look for these areas to attack innocent people. We all know that. The Democrats have blocked this in Jeff City. The Rhinos have blocked this bill in Jeff City. But in committee, every time this comes up, Lovasco is there to again point out the absurdity of limiting what law-abiding Missourians can do and giving the upper ground, so to speak, the high ground, to criminals who ignore the law and carry out their vicious acts. Every time we have asked Representative Lovasco to fight for your gun rights, he has been there on the floor in committee again this year with his candidate survey. And finally, Lovasco is one of the very few in the House who will actually go head-to-head against the Rhino leadership, who is always trying to slow roll and tank pro-gun bills. We have a real problem here in Missouri with we have over 100 Republicans in the House, well over 100, and we have very few, as in less than a dozen, who will actually fight against their own leadership team who are trying to slow roll gun bills. And so when someone has the gumption to do that, that's worth noting, and that's the case when it comes to Tony Lovasco. 100% pro-gun, both in his survey and his actions. That's the recap on Representative Lovasco. And that brings up Deanna Self. Now, it's kind of a good news, bad news situation here. So Deanna Self, first things first, she surveyed with us this session, this cycle, 100% pro-gun. And we're always happy to acknowledge a candidate who surveys 100% pro-gun, no matter what the circumstances. But we have to be careful as gun owners to not simply allow candidates to survey if they don't mean it, if they're being disingenuous, if they're trying to pretend to be something that they're not. And we have questions in this race when it comes to Deanna Self, because she ran 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, Deanna refused to survey with the Missouri Firearms Coalition. We called her, we emailed her, we mailed her the survey, everything we could to get her on the record, and she simply refused. So the question we have to ask now, that you have to ask as a voter in the district, is, has Deanna Self had a change of heart? Is she now willing to be a champion? Is she willing to all of a sudden go from refusing the survey, from not putting her views on paper, for refusing to answer basic questions when it comes to gun rights? Has she had a big change of heart, or is she trying to fool gun voters into thinking that she'll be a champion? I can't answer that for you. Only you can decide if you believe her survey this time or if you really believe her actions 2 years ago. 2 years ago, she got trounced. 2 years ago, she paid the price because gun voters were not happy when she did not complete the candidate survey. Our whiteboard video, just like this 2 years ago, had over 50,000 views in the district. And again, Deanna Self paid the price for not telling gun voters where she stands. Is this a legitimate change of heart, or is it a political tactic designed to get support? Again, we can't answer that, and we're not going to make any claims either direction. Only you can do that, but it bears consideration. So again, the recap here, very simple. Tony Lovasco, 6 years of fighting for the Second Amendment in Jeff City, fighting on the floor, fighting in committee, fighting with his leadership team, 100% pro-gun survey, and the record to match. And with Deanna Self, we do have a pro-gun survey, worthy of noting that. but a lot of confusion in the background on what that survey actually means. Guys, that's our recap in this race. Do me a favor, whether you're watching this on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, any place you're watching this, share it on social media, get the word out there, find more race breakdowns on all of our platforms, and get involved in the fight today, guys, at joinmofc.com.